What's happening, everybody? Hope that you're doing well. Thank you for joining me. And I wanted to actually jump into this topic because it's the topic that I've heard quite a bit over the years. But before we do that, make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell, share this video as we are bridging the gap here at Maximum Impact with Jay Cameron. And the goal here is to change the narratives and to share a bit more accurate information than what we might have been privy to over the years. Also going to be sharing with you how you can be a part of something special that I'm going to be doing on an annual basis. It's going to be the Reset Your Life Retreat. And this is for people who've been in your career for 10, 15, 20 years, maybe even longer, and you're looking to do a reset and you're trying to figure out how to do it. And I can tell you that that's what I did. That's why you see me all over the continent of Africa, traveling the world, because I decided to intentionally reset my life. Details about that coming up and how you can join me. And I'll walk you through the steps, how I did it. And some people just need a break. Sometimes you've been just going, you've been raising the kids, you've been going through all of that, and you just need to just chill. And for men, just being able to live a little bit. You know what I'm saying? So you've been raising a family, you've been doing this, that, and the other. Ladies, you may be in a situation where you've been doing the same thing, been in a career, been in school, and just been on the grind for, like I said, 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 years. And it's time for a reset. So stay tuned for that. All right. Now, we all know, and that's for those of us, especially in the DMV, in the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area, know and love Dick Gregory. He is one of our legends. He's an icon. This gentleman has so much wisdom within himself, or had, I should say, and touched so many people's lives around the world. But there's a video that I saw of Dick Gregory where he was talking about the hurricanes and how they represent the enslaved woman who was brought over from Africa to the Americas, and how the hurricanes hit America because of her, basically her fury. In the talk, there were a lot of things that I heard that were inaccurate. And so a part of what I do here as far as bridging the gap is to offer as much information as possible so that we can be better informed. And so, again, one of the things that I believe one of the dysfunctions in our culture and our community is that if we hear misinformation, we won't challenge it. Or if we hear it from one of our elders, we just kind of let it go. And that's how this stuff continues to filter down. So my love for my people is stronger. And when I say my people, meaning those who want to do better and want to learn better, it's stronger than my allegiance to any personality. And so just because you challenge something doesn't mean that you don't love or you hating or you're attacking somebody. And so that's not what this is here. But the one thing I know is that while I respect my elders and their contributions and their sacrifices, I respect the truth even more. And so misinformation can come from both sides. It can come from the history books that did not give us the information we needed. It can come from the media. It can come from the internet. It can come from old tales that came down through family. And it can also come from our elders, from our very own communities. And so if we have better information, we have a responsibility to share that information, not as a disrespect to them, but as a respect to the larger fight. And that's what I'm going to share with you right now. So I'm going to run this clip of Dick Gregory, and then I'm going to break down for you so you can see and decide for yourself where there may have been some misinformation shared. Take a look at this.
All hurricanes stay underwater and follow the same path that the slave ship followed. No slave was offloaded the ship until it got to the Caribbean. No hurricane jumps above water until it gets to the Caribbean. Then it will hit this country and come all the way up this East Coast. Most destructive where black women was most misused. And it goes all the way up to Maine. And for those of you who've never been to Maine, there's parts in Maine that Canada, you can just step over into it. But Canada's never had a hurricane. When they get to that, they just blow out. No, why? Because Canada never did to a black woman what America did. You know who you are.
While I appreciate Dick Gregory's passion for our community on so many different levels, this particular discussion that he had was not accurate, just flat out not accurate. And I'm going to explain to you why. And I think it's important because even in the chats in this particular video, there were people who chimed in. The truth, I heard it. It was one, let me show you one clip here. One person talked about how his teacher, or her teacher, rather, maybe his or her, I don't know, but how his or her teacher taught this 20 years ago. And you begin to see here, I guess it's Kenyatta Rose. My teacher taught us this in high school well over 20 years ago. Now to hear Dick Gregory repeat this very info, it just hits different. And there were so many other, still, people who were saying, yes, still a great lesson. It's the truth. All of these different things. And this is why travel is so important. And this is why educating yourself outside of any system is so important. Let me show you an illustration of the trade routes. And I'm going to tell you why even you have to be careful with this because, depending on who's giving the information. But I saw things firsthand. And so I'm going to pose certain questions. And then, again, this is not a disrespect on Dick Gregory. This is just us having information to be able to share this properly so that we are able to use our intellectual minds in conjunction with our emotional minds. When you take emotion, your emotion says one thing and it makes sense to the emotion, but then when you have more information, you can make a better decision. So take a look at this right here. All right. So this is what the slave route looked like according to this illustration. And it talked about the different items that were being sold and traded and all of that. So you had the tobacco, the coffee, the cotton, sugar, you had mining, you had rice. And then you look at the west coast of Africa. Now, in the illustration that Dick Gregory was talking about, the hurricanes would normally start off the coast near Senegal. And so Senegal is in northern West Africa, almost near Mauritania, headed towards the Morocco region. So you're going up West Africa a little bit, and that's when you actually begin to see the proximity of America to West Africa. Now, it is reported that most of those who were enslaved were taken to Brazil. Now, let's just look at this from a geographical standpoint. It just makes perfect sense to be able to go from what was called the slave coast, is known as Nigeria, Benin, Togo, Ghana, Cote d'Ivoire, Guinea, Liberia, Sierra Leone, Cameroon. The closest distance and the most favorable climate to that of West Africa is right across in South America. So at no point in Dick Gregory's discussion did he even talk about South America. It was almost as if South America didn't exist. Now, these are estimates that you see here on the screen of approximately 5 million enslaved captives taken from the west coast of Africa, went to Brazil, and primarily a place called Salvador. Of course, you had other parts in Brazil there where they were taken. Then you see Buenos Aires, and you see going into what we know as Venezuela and other parts of northern South America, where a reported 5 million people went. When you move up to America, it's a reported 500,000 people. Again, these numbers are just reports. They're just, but going based upon what Dick Gregory was saying, you wonder where he got his information from. And so that's a question. I would say, well, okay, where did you get your information from? Where did the information come from that you're saying this? So now I'm listening and I'm saying this is a theory. This is something that it's not, he said all hurricanes start off the coast of West Africa. So some questions came to mind, especially with hurricane, since that is the foundation of it. So here's some of the questions that I have. And this, again, just posing questions because I believe it's good. The question that I had is, what about South America? The same women that came from those same places endured the same traumas as what the women went through in the Caribbean and North America. Although the French, the Dutch, the British, the Spanish had different forms of chattel slavery, when you begin to understand how brutal the Spanish were in places like Cuba and other places in South America, obviously in what we now know as the Dominican Republic, there was brutality happening to black women there. The Portuguese in Brazil, there was brutality happening to women there. The French, as they were coming in through the Gulf of Mexico and settling in North America, the British along the east coast of America, the Dutch in America as well, and all throughout Aruba and down in the islands, you begin to see the Dutch and their influence, and I believe they had some presence in South America as well. He said that no slave was offloaded until they got to the Caribbean or the Americas. What happened to South America? What happened to Bermuda? Bermuda's in the Atlantic, but if you go to Bermuda, 65% of Bermuda is of African descent. So we start to look at this, and it's important because I hear teachers are teaching this, people are repeating it, and because we're thinking with our emotional mind, we're believing it. The next question came is, why aren't there hurricanes slamming into Brazil? Since the majority went to Brazil, and since this is the perspective, why aren't the majority slamming into Brazil? Brazil has only one recorded hurricane in modern history, Hurricane Catarina, in 2004. But reported 5 million people went to Brazil, 500,000 came to America. The next question is, why not slam into Europe? If she's that upset, why not go up into Europe and slam into Europe? Why not slam into the west coast of Africa where it was happening? Slavery was going on there. The same abuses were happening. The same abuses were happening on the continent of Africa that were happening in America. I'm of Spanish Portuguese descent. How did that happen? I even thought about it like this, and this may minimize it a little bit, but why, if the hurricanes were so upset, why not just sit out off the coast of West Africa and prevent the ships from even going through there? Why not just stay out there and just churn in the water and just make the water so rough that they don't even want to go that route? The next thing is, why would hurricane slam into the places that her children, her descendants, were highly concentrated? So why, there's been reported 40 plus major hurricanes or storms that have slammed into Haiti and the Dominican Republic. And if you look on the slide, you will see where approximately 4.5 million enslaved went to Haiti, the West Indies, that whole region. So why would this hurricane slam into the places where people, her children, her descendants, were concentrated the highest? So these are just questions that you stop and you ask yourself. You say, well, I don't know if this is really making sense, because then is she trying to kill her children too? Hurricane Katrina, the people who were primarily affected by Hurricane Katrina were people of largely African descent and were displaced. Hurricane Hugo, which is right there, the largest slave port right there in Charleston, South Carolina. Now, a lot of people were affected of all ethnicities there, but it just doesn't make sense for the vengeance to come against the people that were taken and not go back up into Europe. And so people don't have any answers. One person said, well, it was the places where the Hmong, whatever they call it, were the worst towards people. But then I'm saying, well, it was bad down in those islands. It was bad in South America. America doesn't have a lock on trauma. I'll tell you like that right now. And the reason why I say that is because I've traveled to these places. And I've seen with my own eyes. I've seen, again, why not slam back up into West Africa? Because the same thing was happening. The plantations, the farms, the colonization, the abuses, all of that was going on. It was happening in West Africa. It was happening wherever. It was happening in Europe. So one thing that I recognize that we, as a culture of those who are of African descent, especially in particular in America, is we owe it to ourselves to get outside of the American bubble. We can respect our elders and we can respect everything that they've taught us, but we should fact check it. And that's what I had to do, because I've heard so many people tell me so many different things in life that ended up not being accurate. And because I felt as though I was betraying my elder by going back and researching what they told me, I just kind of let it go. And again, what I mean, you even got a whole movement out here. People trying to say the slave trade didn't happen, but they haven't been nowhere. You know, go down to Brazil. I've been to Salvador, Brazil, and I saw all those brown people down there who looked just like me, who looked no different. They couldn't tell I was from any place else, and it was fascinating. That's all I can say. You know, so when you go and you learn and you begin to see things, it begins to change your perspective. The other thing I encourage us to do is to stop looking at information with our emotional eye. Our emotional eye wants that to be the narrative, wants, for whatever that is, I don't know what that thing is, but it causes us to end up gaslighting ourselves when it could just be something very simple. It's like sometimes we can be over spiritual that it's like it doesn't even make sense anymore. And you begin to understand, another thing's about it. Well, hurricanes just started like 500 years ago. You know, it's like hurricanes happen. What about the cyclones and the typhoons that happen in the Pacific? You know, so what's happening over there? And so for those of us who are part of the African diaspora in America, we owe it to ourselves to just kind of stop and think. And one, get outside of the American bubble of education. And that's even outside of the Black American bubble of education. Because a lot of times our information is filtered down to us through a variety of thought processes. So you can have someone who may see things through a victim's mentality. And so if you're in that culture and everybody sees themselves as a victim, and based upon legitimate information, then we can begin to repeat that. We can begin to internalize it versus stopping and thinking for a second like, why? Yeah. Could it just be the Gulf Stream? Could it just be the water? Could have been the ships just knew, the navigators who learned from the Moors and everybody else, who understood the stream, the best way to go would be to go along a current that's already going to take you where you're trying to go. I don't know. I mean, I'm just, these are just, some things are just natural thoughts, natural things, natural occurrences. It's okay to say that it's natural. It's okay to say that's no problem. But again, what I see and what I've heard over the years is something very, very different. And I beg us to see with common sense and not just with our emotional mind and not just with a theory that somebody said. I always challenge people, who told you that? People to put in the comments, yeah, well, it's true. Who told you that? It's in the books. This is when I was talking about the Queen and everything of England and the people from the UK came in, the white people from the UK. Well, it's in the history books. Like, who wrote those history books? Eventually they got stumped because they were used to, their whole narrative was always said, well, Africans sold Africans into slavery. That's y'all scapegoat. That was what, but they weren't used to somebody challenging them and saying, well, it wasn't just that simple. No, we're not saying it didn't happen, but if you don't understand or care to understand the complexities of what was going on during that time and how race and color, skin color was not even an issue for them. They didn't even see themselves as Africans. And this is a new 21st century or 19th, 20th, and 21st century mentality that we're coming with. Then, but if people aren't interested in learning that, then they'll repeat that and other people will repeat it. And it was like people came in on code. They're like white people from the UK came in on code saying the same language. I was like, hey, y'all have been programmed in education. I said, where'd you learn this stuff from? Who taught you? And I say the same thing for us. Who taught us? Who trained us? Where's our information coming from that we can so emphatically say that it's accurate without even really knowing? Well, it's the truth. If you read the comments of what was in the Dick Gregory video, man, it's the truth. I believe it 100%. Just because we believe it doesn't mean that it's true. Just because we feel it in our soul and our spirit doesn't mean that it's true. We could be just having an emotional response to some information. We could be having a trauma response to misinformation. It could be all kinds of things coming down. And so what I encourage us to do, if you want to be a well-rounded person, I just encourage people to be objective and to just kind of look at all sides of it. Because if you aren't objective, and I've been a person who was not objective in my life, if you're not objective, what begins to happen is you begin to spread programmed misinformation. And what that does is it keeps you in a box. And when it keeps you in this box, it's like you're fighting against yourself without even realizing it. And when I say fighting against yourself without even realizing it, is you're fighting for something, but because you have the wrong information, you don't know how to fight for it properly. And so you do what somebody else has done or what somebody else told you to do or whatever the case might be. And you're really expending a lot of energy that does not have to be expended on on things that aren't accurate. So what I encourage people to do is go look into this a little bit more. Look at the one hurricane, and I'll summarize it with this. If hurricane is that upset, how in the world is she not slamming into South America where the majority went, if we're going to go based upon Dick Gregory's argument? Why slam into the places, and then the next question is, why slam into the places where your children are? I don't know any mother who's going to go destroy, any good mother who's going to go destroy where her children are. If anything, she's going to go attack the very entities that are trying to destroy her children. Just a little food for thought there. And then we have to do better. And when I say that, meaning doing comprehensive research and not emotional research. Comprehensive research will allow you to go in and dig up some uncomfortable truths that you may have discovered that things weren't accurate. Emotional research will just go with what someone else said and run with it. And then when somebody asks you who told you that, you become defensive and angry. Or get defensive and angry when we begin to question our elders and what they may have taught us. Instead of saying, you know what? They meant well, but maybe on this one they got it wrong. They may have done a whole lot of other great things, but maybe on this one they got it wrong. At some point, we're all going to get it wrong in our life. Nobody's perfect. But when we cover up, just because we cover up something that stinks, doesn't mean that you can't smell it anymore. And so the thing is that for us, if we're serious about learning and educating ourselves, we have to be able to unearth even the misinformation that comes from within our own community and our own cultures. Otherwise, we are co-conspirators to misinformation. And many people don't want to be co-conspirators to misinformation, but because that's where we are, that's what we do. And if somebody doesn't, sometimes we need somebody just to kind of point out to us where things may be off. And then once people point out to us where things may be off, it's up to us at that point to determine how we're going to handle it. Are we going to go and continue to spread this information, or are we going to go and do something different with it? And so, that's my 2 cents on the topic. I'm looking through here to see if there's anything else I need to share with you. I don't think so. But in the comments, definitely be sure to share this and definitely be sure to subscribe. And to be clear, again, appreciating all the contributions of Dick Gregory over his career, over his life. There's no shade thrown his way. But if we're going to be serious about educating our communities and educating people, then we have to be willing to address when misinformation is even disseminated among us. That's when you're really true to the game. That's when you're really true to bridging the gap. That's when you're really true to elevating, empowering, and uplifting the Black community. And that's the global Black community as well. So anyway, until next time, y'all know to hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell. Be sure to share this information so when you hear it, offer a little bit more perspective as we break this thing down. And then we continue to bridge the gap. Oh, as a matter of fact, make sure you pick up a copy of The Adventures of Darren and Destiny. Talk to you soon.
Open up your